And we're back in band phase still. So with LeBlanc and Rengar band, as Nstep pointed out earlier, we got Lee Sin and Katarina and Malzahar on the chopping block.
Yep, some power bands, some player-targeted bands. You know, the Lee Sin and the Katarina, not really stuff you typically see these days. Kha'Zix, definitely more of a power band, since that champion is a little outrageous on the current patch. And we're seeing the first pick, Camille.
Talking about outrageous, Camille, Yasuo, and Graves, the first 3 picks. This is insane amounts of engage. We're going to see some crazy fights in the early game.
Oh yeah, this looks pretty spicy so far. There's no tanks here, and that Yasuo is probably going to be going top lane, would be my guess. I mean, we'll end up seeing where that goes, but we're definitely seeing, you know, Camille, Graves, definitely early farm jungler, but leads to a lot of action in the mid game, typically speaking. So we'll definitely be looking at an interesting one, and we'll have to see what we're going to see on the other side in response here. Maybe a Zac lock-in would definitely slow down the pick and bans a little bit, and Thresh as well. Could be nice to see some Thresh though. Nice hooks coming out.
Yeah, maybe you can actually lock down that incredibly fast Yasuo, but there's so much mobility to hit a skill shot like a death sentence when he's dashing in and out of minions. That's a tall order, but at least Zac makes it a little bit easier. Pretty big AoE for him.
Yep, he's got those knockups, the smackdowns, and he, you know, blobs around in your team and does a bunch of damage. So we'll see if that works out for Alligator here. And Cassiopeia pick up for distinction. Will be interesting to see. It's weird to see a early mid lane pick on red side. Since he could have just held that for last pick, since that Yasuo is most likely going top lane. I mean, especially now that the Cassio has been picked. Could have just held on to that, but maybe just not really concerned, or maybe just daring Luden Zeki here to go for the counter pick on Cassiopeia, or maybe knowing he doesn't play anything. We'll see.
Well, it's also interesting to me because of the fact that they picked it into the Zac. I mean, Zac does deal incredibly well with these non-hyper mobile mid laners, as it were, and Cassiopeia is one of them.
That is for sure true, yeah. The Zac does have that really powerful ability to gank mid lane from all sorts of different angles. There's no way you can ward against all the potential approach paths from a Zac, so it's definitely dangerous to pick Cassiopeia into Zac, but maybe he's saying, hey, I'm taking all comers, and you come in, I'm gonna blast down your mid lane, or whatever that is. Oh, a Callista coming in for Ice Sentinel, though. Callista Thresh, a classic bottom lane. Classic bottom lane.
Very
Echo coming into the Cassiopeia.
But
yeah, that's I mean, Callista Thresh was a really powerful bottom lane back in the days when Callista was, you know, top of the meta AD carry. Thresh was the popular pick.
He was the only support. I mean, there were very few things that could adequately deal with a Thresh back then.
True, but you know, the whole synergy there, where your Callista, you know, the Callista can Fates Call out your Thresh, and your Thresh can Lantern out your Callista, and it's really just difficult to do anything to them. So probably not going to be seeing Bubbletooth go down and visit the bottom lane here much.
But the Veigar is an AD carry. This is a really interesting pick. I've actually been floating this idea for longer than some might realize. Veigar in the bottom lane, he's actually a very good scaling champ with very little items, so you can build him tankier than usual and still deal insane amounts of damage. So if you pick the Veigar down bot lane, the only issue is, how do you lock someone down? You have to make sure that they're in the circle and they can't go around. Well, Callista is a perfect example. She doesn't have a flash, an immediate blink, and if she dashes into the wall, she's instantly dead. I mean, that's a Veigar one-shot.
Yeah, although you'd have to like think of this as a little suspect pick. This is something you would want to see into more of a passive bottom lane, I'd imagine, where you can scale up and get those Q stacks. Whereas the Callista Thresh has a lot of aggressive potential, so there's definitely a lot of kill potential here for Ice Sentinel and GA Save Jesus. So I don't know if the Veigar is going to work out, but if he can get ahead, for sure, that'll be a pretty strong pick. But if he falls even a little bit behind, he's going to be dying to this Callista a lot.
Well, we'll see if he dies to it a lot, or if it's going to be an upset, really. I mean, we thought Ziggs was going to be just weak as heck. It was a pocket pick, it was only shifter, and then that exploded onto the scene full-hearted. Maybe Niter, he's got something up his sleeve. Maybe he's been practicing it.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see, you know, how much is this a troll pick? How much is this something he's practiced? How much is this going to be something that ends up being really strong? Karma seems like it's a decent pair for it, since the Karma does have a lot of early damage, which the Veigar does lack, since you do need to stack up that AP and get ranks in your queue before you're really doing a lot of damage. But it's a little weird that there's no instant CC on the Karma. You would think you'd want something with some instant CC so that you can then guarantee the cage, but I guess with the Karma root, you can, if you do get the root from the Karma W, you can then get the cage on top of them, but that does require you to root either a Thresh or a Callista, which is going to be pretty difficult.
Yeah, especially when they're going to be playing so far back. They know what this lane wants to do. They want to take the early aggression, they want to combo their CC, and they want to set up the Graves, most importantly. I mean, this Graves is going to be so key in just carrying these uber aggressive lanes into the phase where Cassiopeia can actually just 1v5.
Yeah, it's also worth noting, not to focus too hard on the bottom lane, but we've got this Yasuo top with no knockups on the team at all. So this Yasuo is only setting himself up, and there's only one tank in the game also. It's just the Zac from Feraligatr, so going to be a lot of damage and not many knockups. So it's a little weird to see the Yasuo definitely more of a 1v1 pick. So a lot more CC on the side here with the Zac and the Camille, the Echo. Everyone here is bringing some amount of CC. Even the Callista brings that knockup from Fate's Call, plus the slow from Rend. Whereas on the other side, we've got like an unreliable knockup from Yasuo, just the smoke screen from Graves, just the potential stoning and grounded from the Cassiopeia, and then obviously the bottom lane does bring a lot of their own CC. But a little weird to see heavily mismatched CC, but of course a lot more damage on the other side.
Yeah, what do you think of this top lane matchup in particular? We haven't touched on the Camille yet, but it is a power pick. It is one of the most dominant champions in the current meta, if not of almost every meta I've seen, and to put it up against anything, I mean, they first picked it. I mean, it's going against Yas now. Do you think Yasuo has a chance? Do you think Regal Wolf can pull out this 1v1?
I mean, it's certainly possible. It's not out of the question that this Yasuo might be able to. Particularly, the big thing is that Camille's hookshot, when you hookshot into the wall and then you shoot off of it, you're actually locked into the path very quickly. So what Yasuo can do is Yasuo can then dash through a minion to dodge the stun, and if he's able to do that reliably, he will be able to take some good trades into the Camille. Obviously, it's still going to be very dangerous for him because if you get ulted, if you get Hextech ultimatumed and then the Zac shows up, you're just dead, right? There's no way you can do anything about that. There's no room to outplay. There's nothing you can wind wall. You're just dead. Doesn't matter how good of a Yasuo player you are. If the Zac shows up and you're not ready for it when you get ultimatumed, you're a dead man. But if he is able to outplay the hookshot stun, he can maybe pull off some 1v1 action. But any jungler attention is going to be bad for him. Even his own Graves is really not going to be able to put much pressure onto this Camille, though.
Yeah, it's going to be, as you said, a very, very hard matchup. It's not easy in the slightest, but is that because of the fact that it's Camille, or is it because of the fact that Yasuo with no knockup pressure, he can't really look to combo it with any kind of, roam?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think in general, the Yasuo matchups top lane right now just aren't that great. There's a lot of champions that have just really strong 1v1 potential that there's not much room for Yasuo to outplay or anything like that. And also Yasuo did, you have to remember, receive a fairly harsh nerf to his E damage recently. So it's difficult for him to all-in people. It's more difficult for him to just deal a lot of damage in the trades that he used to get from his E, that you maxing that early out and just doing a ton of damage to his lane opponent with it. So losing a lot of that damage, just his 1v1 is not as good, and it's a lot harder to play him top lane. I think definitely now, more than ever, he's more of a mid lane pick, back to that, and even there, I think he's a little weak in general, but we'll have to see if Regal Wolf can pull off the outplays here against Veniz.
Yeah, I mean, it's not an easy ask, to say the least. It's a very, very risky pick to leave Camille open anywhere, I think. But especially against someone who's practiced on it, that is just so hard to ask for. But now we are finally into game. It's the EU Coaches Show match, week number 5, and it's going to be a very, very interesting one. This is something I've been kind of looking forward to see if it's going to be, really about Niter and Sentinel. They have a little bit of a history, a little bit of beef. It's friendly beef mostly, but how friendly can cows be? They're pretty mean at heart. So with a pause, we're going to take a slight break, and actually I wanted to ask a little bit more about this Karma Veigar. They started, we expected the Doran's ring, but I was expecting almost a coin from the Karma. I mean, if you have a Veigar, generally want to farm more, but isn't that a little bit of a mismatched lane with such an aggressive support?
I mean, I think that you do want a support that's strong in the early game to match with his Veigar, because if you pick something that's a little bit more passive in the early game, then you're going to get shoved in, you're going to get pressured out, and it's going to be harder for the Veigar to scale up because, you can get pressured in, especially by a lane as strong early on as Callista Thresh. This is there's a reason why this is such a strong, this has always been such a strong lane matchup whenever Callista has been meta. But Yeah, I do think it makes some sense. I just, like I said in Champ Select, it's just a little confusing to me that you would pick a support without any instant hard CC. So I feel like something else that would provide something that would be easier to set up the cage with would make a little bit more sense. But maybe there's some particular reason that they're looking at the Karma. I mean, the shield obviously helps you trade quite a bit. That would be definitely very useful for the Veigar to have the shield for trading. But yeah, I'm not sure what other reasons you would want to pick the Karma other than just having early dominance in the lane for the Veigar.
Yeah, I mean, early dominance is a pretty good one, though, but if they can't get it, I mean, allowing Kalista basically free farm if you can't land the CC, if you can't start getting it, that's a recipe for disaster. Kalista might not be meta anymore, but she certainly is a powerhouse if she gets rolling.
Yeah, and she did receive some buffs not that long ago. It was just you know, what, a month and a half ago that she got
yeah,
pretty
3-4
substantial
weeks.
buffs. Yeah, not that long ago she got some substantial buffs to her rend. Makes it less punishing if you do miss the rend, and of course allows you to get resets more easily in lane. So we'll see we'll see that kind of stuff coming out as Nighter Shadow and Stareye just getting a leash down here for their Graves jungle. And Distinction doing some trading in mid. Looks like he did take that Deathfire touch, not the Storm Raiders, so going to have a harder time kiting around here than you would normally expect.
Yeah, not taking Storm Raiders, I'd say that's a 50-50 gamble against an Echo. Echo, after all, if you land grounding, he's not useful. He's not going to be doing much of anything, recalling or going in, but yeah, it's kind of interesting. I would have liked to maybe see Thunderlords if you're foregoing that sort of mobility buff, but maybe he's got something up his sleeves. As of right now, seems to be doing all right against Ludens.
Yeah, I mean, well, we're seeing a big trade here in the bottom.
That's almost a death sentence. That is death for sure. First Blood Sentinel picking that one up, and NIL, they start off strong. That's a 1-0 in the bot lane, but not unexpected. I mean, Kalista Thresh, if they start to combo the CC, it's just going down.
Yeah, I mean, it was a late exhaust from Stareye. Probably could have lived there had the flash been a little better either. You know, it was just, I mean, it's a really nice play from GA Save Jesus as well, but still, you gotta point out, like, Stareye, even if he was going to die there, definitely shouldn't have used both summoners. Bubbles is very low in his jungle here, but essentially wasted both summoners there, got nothing out of Eye Sentinel or GA Save Jesus, so that's just a huge win for this Kalista Thresh bottom lane, and like I said, if this Veigar lane falls behind, it's going to be very difficult. Wow, that was a really long hook shot there, but
ooh, yeah.
If this Kalista Thresh lane falls behind, or sorry, gets ahead against the Veigar Karma, it's going to be very difficult for them to do much against the Kalista Thresh.
Yeah, actually, interestingly enough, the hookshot, it has a longer hitbox than most people expect because the square is sort of tilted sideways. So even past where it'll tell you that the hookshot will land, you can still contact terrain because the terrain boxes aren't exactly fully lined either. I mean, it sort of magnets to it like the old Fish Fizz would.
Yep, also worth noting, of course, when you do that hook shot and then the shot off the wall, you can flash to continue the knockup, just like you would with a Gragas Body Slam or a Shen taunt, something like that. So we'll see if we probably won't be seeing that this game, but it is worth noting since it is something that looks really strange when you do see it come out. So I like to warn people before that might happen. As we're seeing Graves poking his head into the top lane, but Bubbletooth's just going to back off. Makes sense. He's at less than half HP.
Yeah, really surprising that he's going this far. A little bit of an invade for Alligator. He's not going to find anything. Timing not on his side, but at least Scuttle is up. Maybe he could come down for that. Maybe he could come down for a gank. Ward's the only thing protecting them, but not protecting Distinction. Ludens has to back out. Graves just a little bit too slow, but now the engage starts in the bot lane. Nighter Shadow dodges the death sentence. Still alive for now. GA Save Jesus. He needs to land a big amount of CC, but with Ludens Etchy going very, very low, still brings down Bubbletooth in the mid lane. Fights all across the map.
Yeah, but Bubbletooth's just overstaying with really low HP. Not really sure why he didn't go back. It's kind of weird to see that. They just kind of walked up and didn't even get to flash out. Just kind of used nothing and went down to Ludens. I mean, that is nice for Distinction in regards to the fact that Ludens has no summoner, so really for the next few minutes, Distinction has a huge amount of pressure in this lane. But if Ludens is able to back off and just concede some CS and make it up and you know, use this kill to his advantage, get that banked gold spent. But yeah, it's going to be for now difficult. Although Distinction is looking a little low on mana, so the summoner loss on Ludens maybe won't get punished for now.
Yeah, it's actually kind of interesting, I think, because with the Echo this low and still needing to use mana to farm, he might not even have enough for this, you know, Chrono Shift. If he hits 6, if he goes in on Distinction. He might not even have enough, but with both of them backing off, items start to come out, and oh, really interesting pickup. I've been seeing this in a couple of echoes, but I didn't think we'd see it here. So some people are going into the Frost Queen's Claim on Echo mid because they want to get more of the gold from the poke lane that they're doing. And as I say that, though, engage in the bottom lane with Feraligatr here. Maybe they can make something happen. He's still alive, still got a lot of HP, but Bubbletooth turning it into a 3 versus 3. The Graves forcing the flash out of Ice Sentinel now has to return away from this fight because Van was in the top lane, TPing down, cancels it to stay in the lane. Hookshot in, a little bit of damage, but no kills are traded.
Yeah, that was a pretty close fight all around, but feels like Feraligatr could have been, I mean, Feraligatr's actually behind his bottom lane here. He probably could have been level 5 with a little bit better jungle pathing. He could have been level 5 coming into that play, and if he'd been level 5, maybe could have gotten a little bit more damage onto Knight or Shadow there, and maybe would have been able to take him out with a flash Q or flash W, something like that. So a little bit weird. Did get the teleport cancel from Venice in the top lane, so it is worth noting that Regal Wolf does now have TP advantage. Of course, the Yasuo, you don't really expect him to be a really big force TPing into the bottom lane. He brings no CC and not a ton of damage in the early game, so not really a big deal that he does have that TP advantage. But that does mean that if they can get a kill on Venice, maybe if Bubbletooth comes up there, it would be a big deal since he will lose out on all the experience. He won't be able to TP pick that back up, so maybe look to see Bubbletooth ganking that top lane.
And even if he gets ganked by Feraligatr, even if he gets, you know, sort of double killed early, I mean, that would still be beneficial because he comes back, he doesn't miss much farm, and he can keep playing that Yasuo scale game.
Yep, can do that. Although, of course, you know, how valuable is the Yasuo scale game against a Camille who is just going to be able to do so much damage with just 2 items? As we're seeing a hook onto Star-Eye here, maybe not going to go into that big minion wave, though.
Yeah, engaging on that would be a little bit dangerous, but so is Bubbletooth staying around. He has not hit 6 yet, does not have control of his own jungle, and that just belongs to NIL. KMP, I mean, they're falling a little bit behind. It's mostly this early kill, but early 2 kills, that shouldn't be a total of 1,000 gold. You know, you'd think to see it traded back a little bit. Now Luden's is actually engaging. Distinction is in danger. He doesn't know it yet. This is Zac starts to come in for Feraligatr, making himself known, but he cannot let it bounce. Is not 6 yet. Without an ultimate, Distinction slithers away.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about kind of with those Summoners losses. We're seeing Ice Sentinel go in. He's going to throw the Fate's Call, but nice stun cage there by Knight or Shadow, blocking Ice Sentinel. Doesn't look like they're going to be able to get anything off that. But yeah, that's what I was talking about with the mid lane and the Summoners. Luden Zeki with no Summoners up couldn't actually follow up on that. Had he had Flash and Ignite there, probably would have been Distinction at the very least trading Summoners, possibly still a kill going over to Luden Zeki even with the Summoner trade. But because those Summoners, his Ignite has just come up and his Flash is going to come up soon. Without those Summoners, was not able to chase into that kill. That is one of the big problems with Echo in the early game is before you get your Proto Belt, before you get lots of CDR in your kit, it's actually hard to finish people off.
Yeah, and speaking of hard to finish people off, Yasuo versus Camille, this lane, they have so many tools for outplay that every time one starts to go low, it's just, okay, how long will it be before I disengage? But as I say that, the ultimate comes out, and this is not where you want to be if your Regal Wolf drops down to the Camille solo kill. But now it's the bot lane, the focus, Eye Sentinel. Even when he's snared up, I don't think Star is going to get out of this. Still dashing forward, rends him to death, and the Karma drops with Luden's Achi stunned up. That's a beautiful ultimate. Stone Gaze petrifies him to bring back 1, but it's still 2 for 1 overall for NIL.
Yeah, really nice plays. We're seeing Feraligatr come in here.
Nice Distinction flashed away, though. That's beautiful from Feraligatr, but even then, the turret shot's still here. Hooking in the Veigar, though. This is just not stopping, even though with the cage down, this is going to be death galore. Everyone is dying. Distinction takes down 1, and Knight or Shadow will drop as well. The Callista dashing under the turret. Surely she has friends. She doesn't! The Karma Shield saves it!
Wow, that was a lot of action.
And it's not stopping yet. Regal Wolf, he's finding himself in the target sights of Venice. The program is execute Yasuo on sight, and he's attempting to do just that every single time he walks near the minions. It's danger, danger, danger signs.
Whew, that was a lot of action, a lot of stuff to talk about. So really nice. I think one big thing I want to mention, that really nice play by Distinction in the mid lane to predict the turn back on his ultimate from the Echo, and just goes for the petrifying gaze onto exactly where Luden Zeki was, and Luden Zeki wasn't able to turn around in time. He was pulling back into his ultimate, gets immediately stoned and just taken out. And then, of course, Alligator comes in, and Distinction is still, able to pick him off with the help of Bubbletooth coming in. And that's a really big win in the mid lane. And you can see there's a huge CS lead here for Distinction, very far ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is why I mentioned earlier, I actually didn't get to finish the point about the Frost Queens, but Echoes take this because they fall so far behind, because in lanes where you lose, where you know you lose, where they scale better, you have to just try and grab every single bit of gold you can, and a lot like the AP mid Nasus, you just need to get it, and this is just going the wrong direction in the top lane, absolutely mauling him with the Camille Venice. He's taking control of this lane for sure, but how much can be said for the rest of the map? It's still kind of even, 1,500 gold separating the teams. Engaged still, Night or Shadow in a little bit of danger with this Sentinel dashing in. Stareye, not where you want to be, in the box, in the rend, in the death. Sentinel picks up his 3rd kill, and even with the QSS, he hasn't popped it. Is it up even? I don't know, but he's down, and that's a shutdown. Distinction brought some friends, and Bubbletooth is going to make it a 3 versus 1, make that 3 versus 0 as they turn to the Dragon.
Yes, slick roam there from Distinction, gets down there and was able to, despite Stareye going down early to those huge numbers of rend stacks, and despite the really early QSS from Sentinel that didn't even get used, could have probably QSS'd and flashed out to save his life, but didn't end up using it, just goes down anyway. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a nice big lead here for Sentinel in the bottom lane, but everything is just going on to Distinction here. He is 3-0-1, getting really big, and maybe even able to get something here since this cage is...
Oh, that was actually almost disaster. Lunenzetchi picks up 1, at least for his troubles, but for Alligator, man, you can't be bouncing here. This is a no-bounce zone, bounce house, shutdown, no permit, and that's a double kill Distinction. He was 3-0, now he's 5-0.
And he just got a blue buff transfer as well. This is the absolute nightmare here. This Cassiopeia is absolutely massive. This Echo is not going to be able to lane against the Cassiopeia at all. Even has exhaust up now for a potential 1v2 play or 1v3 as
we'll see if they can do the 1v2. But with Camille here, this is a very dangerous champion and no ultimate to speak of, no petrifying gaze. With the hookshot to finish, Venice transfers his lead to the mid lane.
Yeah, I mean, it's a nice play by Venice, but it's also just, you got to wonder, what was Distinction really doing? Why not just exhaust the Camille as soon as the ult comes in? Then you can take much less damage. It randomly exhausted the Thresh there at the very end of the play. Obviously the Thresh isn't going to do anything. Could have maybe saved himself enough time or maybe just gotten the kill onto Thresh by exhausting the Camille to take way less damage. But, I mean, either way, nice run by Venice, able to turn that Hextech ultimatum into a kill there.
But besides that, I mean, there's leads in the top for NIL, there's leads in the mid for KMP, and the lead in the top is 2,000 gold for Venice. 2,000 gold at 13 minutes for a single lane advantage. That's absolutely insane. Even the mid lane cast at 5-1 is 1,000 gold up. So we gotta wonder, how much can Distinction do? He's gonna have to do a lot more than what he's currently doing, and with Venice in his sights, maybe that's gonna happen. Yeah, it does. There's a big collateral damage to shut down one. Regal Wolf shuts down the second, and the mid lane turret has 4 members marching through it, even with 2 coming in. I think NIL is about to lose a brick.
Yeah, KMP with the nice early bottom lane roam here. Their bottom lane just shows up way before NIL's, and they're able to, because that early bottom lane roam, they just pick up, hey, we have 2 extra people here. It's going to be really hard for you to fight us. And yeah, it turns out that if you have 2 extra people in the enemy team, it's really difficult for them to do much. As we're seeing maybe a parallel convergence come in here, but doesn't look like he's going to go for it. Distinction playing a dangerous game here, but it looks like he's got the damage.
Oh, Sentinel, that was a dangerous game, much more so than Distinction's, because right now he's just got Lunenzetchi exactly where he wants him. Camille respawn, back into the fight, full health bars, but what can he do against 4 members? There's so much damage that he needs to lay down, and he started it out with Distinction dropping in the middle of the fight, but it's a 4 versus 3. They need Zac, they need some kind of tank, and Alligator has shown up to the fray. He's a new challenger, but no one wants to approach him.
Yep, a lot of missed skill shots there. I mean, it's got to be pointed out. You miss the skill shots, you're probably not going to get much accomplished. Also, we did something we didn't touch on. There was an Infernal Drake going over to KMP there, so that is going to be the scaling in their favor. And they're only down 1k now. They were down 2k about 3 minutes ago, at 2.5k. So they're now down, not down as much, and they do have that favorable scaling with the Infernal Drake, and they never even got the first turret. So if they're still able to pull the first turret out, they'll probably be able to pick up a lead, although it looks like
first
this
turret
might go over to NIL here.
I was pretty sure.
Oh, no, you're right. It did go down. The first turret has already gone down. Venice did take that out in the top lane. I missed that. My bad.
But Venice is swifting to the bot lane. This is possibly a second turret. Nobody's coming to contest him with a Vhagar level 8. That's just not enough minions to secure the turret, and Venice even gets out alive. I mean, when that's happening, both your side lanes are down, your mid lane turret below 300 HP. Where's the advantage? Where are you going to look for this this gain? You need something to come out in objective time.
It was a big mistake, though, for Venice to back off the turret there. He did lose out on the local gold, which on the outer turrets is most of the gold, or almost most of the gold that you do get. Even without the first turret gold, a lot of the gold on those outer turrets is in local gold. And so losing out on that, you can see the lead really isn't that big. It's still only 1,500 gold for NIL here. So, yes, they did get 2 turrets, but that does mean that if KMP is able to take an advantage and get a kill, to push a turret, something like that, they will slingshot back because they do have extra outer turrets to take. So there's a lot more standing gold on the map for them, and that is a really big concern for NIL. They do need to defend these towers, even though this mid lane turret is very low, so it'll be very difficult for them to do so.
Well, hopefully they can. I think that the comp is, again, we've talked about so much, but Distinction, if he pops off, he's going to carry the game. I mean, he has so much damage, so much resources already put into him on the Cassiopeia dodge of the death sentence. Good start, but as of right now, I mean, all they can do is zone and farm and just try and trade mid-turrets 1 for 1, or at least get a fight if they do go for the turret.
Yeah, it is worth noting. Distinction here is 1,500 gold up on the next closest person on his team, who's actually Bubbletooth. It's not even Night or Shadow or Regal Wolf. So Distinction very rich here, and will be having to do most of the damage for his team in these fights. Eventually, you expect Night or Shadow to be able to pick up some of the damage that maybe Distinction can play a little bit safer, not do all of his team's damage by himself. And of course, Bubbletooth, once he starts building up that lethality, will be doing a ton of physical damage himself. But unfortunately, right now, a lot of this game is going to be on Distinction for KMP. So if they're able to pull off something, it's probably going to be starting from Distinction.
I think what's really interesting here is the fact that Ludens, we talked about him being down. You know, we thought that he was getting zoned out completely. CS, it's narrowed. It's a 20 CS gap. He's got the, Frost Queens is helping him out. Regal Wolf not getting much help of himself, but yeah, 800 gold separating the mid laners. That is such a small gap for a 3-kill lead and 3 assists.
Yeah, it's really not as much gold as you would expect, and partially that is due to this Frost Queen's claim, of course, giving you extra gold generation. It is to be, expected somewhat that he would close the gold gap, and the gold gap means less when you go for something like a Frost Queen claim because it is a less efficient item. As Isenno does get put in the box, but a lot of damage going on, but not quite the kill.
Distinction, he can't find that last little bit of damage, but he does find a Zac, he does find Ludens. Actually turns around, Petrifying Gaze. Beautiful. And now they're pursuing the Zac into the middle of the enemy jungle. This is going to be a very dead blob. Jello all over the ground. It's just getting splattered by Regal Wolf and friends, and Distinction gets himself his 7th kill. Now, the Infernal Drake is looking good, and that's their 2nd of the game.
That was the worst possible time for Feraligatr and Ludenseki to go down. Not only did they give up the 2nd Infernal Dragon, huge amount of scaling going over. Now KMP's only down 1k gold, and they're probably going to be able to pressure onto this Camille, maybe even get this mid turret. We'll see what they end up taking, but maybe Venice can get out here. The hookshot is pretty difficult to chase.
It's so hard to even consider pulling it. Oh, but when you're pulled straight into the Veigar circle, it gets a little bit easier. Now, even Night or Shadow outplaying with a little bit of plant damage blasts him back into the team, and this is collateral damage and the chase from Regal Wolf. Surely he's got the kill, and even with the turnaround, this might be almost enough with that. It's a Lantern, he gets out! That's an insane escape from Venice!
That was really nice, but you also have to question the decision-making here from KMP. Why not just take that mid tower? But it was a really nice at-first chase where Night or Shadow did get that interrupt on the Lantern take, since you get that stun cage. The stun cage does stop any dashes through it, and that includes the Thresh Lantern. So it was really nice to see that and say, hey, oh yeah, this is a really nice this is a really nice chase. Maybe he'll be able to make it out. Maybe he'll get out through the another hook shot coming up. And eventually did make it out. But that cage was really nice.
Night or Shadow doesn't make it out.
Exploded. Yeah, that is a lot of damage coming in here from Ludenseki. Just built up a lot of AP.
Into dash, into damage. The Time Winders are doing so much for Ludens, and every time he goes in, it seems, it's just damage, damage, damage galore, and I'm actually pleasantly surprised. Looks like he's going for Rabs as well, so that's only going to get higher as soon as he finishes that.
It's kind of a weird mix of items. I'm not really sure what this all could be. I mean, the Negatron Cloak indicates to me that maybe he's looking for an Abyssal Scepter. Earlier, it looked to me like he was actually going for a Luden's Echo when he had just the Large Rod and the Amp Tome. So he's just bought a lot of components. It's really not clear to me what he wants to buy. Maybe he's just, hey, I need MR on this back. Hey, I need more AP on this back. So that's really what he's looking at. But could easily be the Death Cap. Could be this. Could be the Abyssal Scepter. Probably depends on how much he bases with.
Generally, what a lot of Echoes like to do, especially when they're in the behind lane with Frost Queens, is they build a Neg Cloak just for pure stat value. I mean, it's, what is it, 40 MR for like 720 gold. It's absolutely insane value, and then you can go in for either a Ludens or a Rabs or some kind of really heavy AP item to sort of get you a big mid-game spike. And I see from what he has, that's pretty much going to be it, but this could be it for Bubbletooth. That doesn't land onto anyone. Petrifying Gaze usually so consistent, but even that damage can't be relied on. Sentinel dashes back into the end of line, and he goes down. That's Graves taking one. Can they get more distinction? He's got Poison ticking away, but the shield is down. Caught in Veigar's stun circle. What can you do? And the answer is die, die, die. This is just all going wrong for NIL. They have 2 members left alive. Luden's Etchy, even with the recall, even with the time being rewound, he does not have enough left in the tank and goes down. 4 members still up for KMP.
Yeah, it was a really nice play by there, Bubbletooth. He was able to get the 1v1 on iSentinel, who was a little bit overconfident in chasing Bubbletooth into that bush. Bubbletooth at this point doing huge damage. He's got a little bit of lethality, a lot of AD, and of course iSentinel, who's purchased a QSS that does nothing against this Graves. You can't 1v1 this Grave when you waste 1,300 of your gold on an item that just does nothing against him. He doesn't do any magic damage except, you know, a small amount with his grenade, which is not relevant, and he doesn't have any CC you can cleanse. So what are you doing walking in 1v1 against this Grave, who's pretty big, right? This guy is fairly sizable. He's not irrelevant by any means. Quite strong items at this point in the game. And of course, they also have Double Inferno, and this is the point in the game where you have to start considering this Double Inferno is going to make these 1v1s a little lopsided. 16% extra AD is actually adding up to a lot of gold value now. So really, it's going to be hard for iSentinel or really anybody on the side this other side here to be able to get a 1v1 successfully. But they are starting up this Baron, and maybe they can sneak it. They're spotted out though.
No, even with the ward, they're going to have to be a quick response. Baron down to 6,000 HP. With Distinction coming in, he does have ultimate. Keep your eye on this Cassiopeia. He should start it up right now. Petrifying Gaze comes out. It only catches 1 though, but will that be enough? Luden's Etchy has to start backing away, and with him backed off, the rest of the team will as well. They do make it out alive, pick up 1 kill for their troubles, but for now, Baron has been halted, and that's enough for KMP.
Yeah, overall, I would say that's a win for KMP since they do get to stop the Baron, which was a huge threat, even though they overcommitted to the bottom side, which is why NIL was able to start the Baron in the first place. So obviously, it was a mistake, and they didn't get punished too hard for making that mistake, since they were able to just give up 1 life and still take out the ability to do the Baron there. And a little bit over to say there, Ludenzeki and Feraligatr hoping someone would walk by that bush, and he's probably going to be able to easily get away from this with the hook shot. Although going deeper into enemy territory is a lot riskier than just trying to go away.
Well, we'll see if he gets out. The Thresh Lantern is here. He should be lanterned out safely. It looks like that will be the case. This Thresh, so on point. GA save Jesus. Might be saving the rest of his team as well. That's an ultimate from Veigar. Very surprised that he used that. Primordial Burst is just... It's not going to matter on Veniz. I don't think you're ever going to be able to burst him with that.
It is a lot of damage there, and Veniz is pretty much out of the fight. He's going to have to recall here. I don't think that they're going to be able to do much off of this. KMP doesn't have any relevant pressure right now, but in theory, that could have been a nice play where, hey, you know, we know Veniz isn't dead, but he can't really do anything because he's so low. The Camille does need a lot of health to be able to go, and it's not like a low HP you know, Thresh or Callista or something like that, where they can still throw abilities and maybe auto attack from the edge of the fight. If you're Camille and you're low HP, you're not doing anything because you just can't go anywhere near anyone because they have higher range than you. She's very short ranged as a champion. Even with that hook shot, you still have to get close to them, even though it will give you a short stun.
Yeah, hopefully we're going to see some of the more interesting items on Camille. I think Sterix would be invaluable against this team of full damage, but as it is right now, the Baron already going to be going down. That is just not even contested, no wards in the area, and KMP pick it up for free.
Yep, and they've got a pretty sizable lead now. They're giving up the 3rd Infernal for this, but I think they're going to be calling worth on that one. Yeah, you get the 3rd Infernal over on NIL, but you lose the Baron, and that's pretty rough. Obviously, if they're not able to take anything off of this Baron, that will end up being good for NIL, since they get that they get that Infernal to help match some of the scaling coming out from KMP here. But if they're able to take out an inhibitor with this Baron, that was not worth it, and I think that they'll probably be able to, as long as they don't overplay their hand here too much.
Yeah, not overplaying, I think, is definitely the name of the game. They've overcommitted a couple times in situations where they really didn't need to, as you've mentioned, and if that trend continues, they've actually swung the gold lead back in their favor, 4,000 gold, but if it stays stagnant, or if it swings the other direction again, say by a slight throw, by an overcommitment, by getting picked, this game could easily go back in the other direction. I mean, there's only a 1 Infernal lead now, the gold's shrinking, and Baron only lasts for a couple minutes.
Yeah, it is worth noting here that 4K at this point is worth quite a bit. I like to always point out the percentages of the gold lead, not the actual value of the gold lead. At this point, a 4K lead is about 10% gold lead, right? That's pretty decent, but 10% is not insane, right? That's not going to give you a huge amount more scaling. I like to say when the gold lead gets to about 20%, that's when it starts to become insurmountable. So if they're able to continue extending this gold lead, it will be pretty rough. And of course, you have to consider the Infernal is worth some amount of gold. The gold value increases as the game goes on, so being 1 Infernal up is worth a lot. And it's also, of course, worth noting 2 Infernals is worth a lot when you have all damage dealers. So Hook not going to be doing much on the Bubble Tooth.
Yeah, but the damage lead has shrunken considerably with 2 Infernals now being a 1 Infernal lead overall. The fight should be at least slightly closer. I still don't think Sentinel can 1v1 Bubble Tooth, but we shall see. Callista really needs that second item, and she's so far behind because of the early QSS.
Yeah, that early QSS really has not paid off for Sentinel. He has never been able to use it to any effect. At least I don't believe he's been able to use it at all to any effectiveness. And it just set his early build so far behind, and they might have been able to actually get something down bottom lane. His Distinction does get hooked. Maybe he's going to be going down here, but...
Yeah, CC galore, but with Distinction in the middle of the team, he actually goes to the side of it, and that's a beautiful flash over the wall, but how long can he stay alive? Death Sentence, it's not going to matter. Distinction is laying out damage, but he's so low. Exhausted and Regal Wolf back into the fight. Now Bubble Tooth is low as well, but that Camille's going down. So is the Zac. It's a triple kill. It's almost a quadra kill, but 4 members have dropped, and there's still 4 alive on KMP.
Yeah, 4 for 1. That's one of those things where you say, hey, you got this really fed Cassiopeia, but was it worth it? No, absolutely not. They overcommit super hard. They blow everything trying to kill Distinction. He's able to survive so long thanks to these Karma Shields, thanks to his nice flash over the wall, thanks to his extra Petrifying Gaze getting the stun down. Just really, really nice play there from Distinction to survive as long as possible, and that does enable his team, KMP, to pick up an inhibitor, maybe even 2 going down here. It does look like they're going to get a second inhibitor, and that is going to be really hard for NIL to come back from.
Yeah, with 2 inhibitors down, they can just pressure the top lane, wait it out, supers march into the base, and everything goes awry. That is NIL. I mean, you talked about percentages of gold leads. At 8,000 gold, that is a significant amount. That's more than 4K was 4 minutes ago.
Yeah, this is looking to be closer to about a 15% lead nowadays. I mean, obviously, like I say, 20% is where it really starts to get insurmountable at any point in the game, but 15% is quite substantial, especially when you do have an extra Infernal. And people do like to say, oh, the 1 Infernal cancels out the other Infernal on KMP. You have to keep in mind, double Infernal is a lot better on a full damage composition than 1 Infernal is on a composition where you have 1 full tank champion and then 1 champion that's going to get a decent amount of tank items, which is Venice. Venice is most likely not going to be going more than 2 damage items in this game, or 2.5, something maximum. And so he's not going to just get as much out of these double Infernal as everyone on the side of KMP here who does. Everyone on their team is building full damage, right? Obviously, there's a GA from Regal Wolf here, but still, the PD,
it's
the Frozen Mallet. Yeah, it's a bruiser type Yasuo build. People like to call it tank Yasuo, but still gains a lot of value from those double Infernal Drakes here. Whereas for Alligator really gains nothing, and Venice gains probably less than Regal Wolf does out of that 1 Infernal.
I would actually argue that's about equal between the two, but even if it's equal, you are right. There's a tank champ versus a full damage Graves. And the Graves is 6-1. He's going to be earning a lot from it, but we'll see if it can be turned around. After all, it has not hit that critical mass tipping point yet. For reference, at 50k, it'd be about 10,000 gold would be 20%. That is where we would pretty much draw the line, but for now, still room to renege on that promise of winning. They have time, but with supers pushing in, time is all they need. This base is just slowly starting to crumble, and it would take a massive play by NIL to bring it back.
Yeah, they're just down so much. Even now, there's just not that much gold sitting on. Before the fights, where one or two members of KMP would be sitting on a lot of gold, and you could say, oh, the gold lead doesn't amount to as much now, as Niter Shadow does get hooked, but no follow up here from NIL. Really, that was their one opportunity. It seemed like if they'd had more people in position. Unfortunately, with Venice in the bottom lane clearing out those super minions, they didn't feel as comfortable pushing up on that. As another hook barely misses Niter Shadow.
Niter Shadow's gotta be a little bit more careful. Death sentence. It's not going to spell death instantly, but it still could spell death. That's a third hook, and now with the team ready, Niter Shadow is stunned up. Surely he's going to be brought down, even with the heals going awry. This is GA Shaved Jesus in the backlines, and Camille is brought down. Distinction takes one. Can he get more? Star Eye drops, but that's not enough. And the last member in this base, Sentinel, desperately trying to kite, desperately trying to do enough damage, but the flashes are in, and Regal Wolf has done the damage. That's a double kill for the Yasuo. Bubbletooth, even if he's brought down, it's not going to matter, as Distinction and Regal Wolf clean up the game.
Yeah, and that was pretty much as the best possible start to the fight for NIL. They got the hook onto Niter Shadow, immediately followed by a huge stun from Luden's Echo. The parallel convergence stun onto 3 targets, but they're just too far behind. There's just nothing that they could have done. Even with the perfect start to their fight, they're going to go down. And this is KMP picking up the game and starting the series 1-0.
Yeah, this is absolutely a big win. A fantastically played game by KMP. They do manage to clean it up in the end, and that Cassiopeia Distinction, man, did he do some work.
Absolutely. He put in a lot of work. Every single lane, everyone besides Distinction on KMP falling behind in the early game. So Distinction able to keep them all in the game and able to transfer his lead to everyone else on his team. That and Bubbletooth getting that really nice, getting some really nice plays, some 1v1, some nice ganks. Bubbletooth able to put himself substantially ahead of Feraligatr and substantially ahead of the game in general. But just Bubbletooth making some nice plays. Distinction really extending his lead to the whole game, and KMP picks up the game. That's really nice to see.
Yeah, with that, we are going to take a short break, everyone, while we get into lobby for game number 2. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this very short break. Alright guys, we are back. It is Learning Fives. Again, it's the EU Coaches match, and we are just getting into Champion Select. Teams have been swapped, so we will swap their sides. And while that happens, first couple bands, Callista, Cassiopeia, and there's been talk in the chat of some very interesting picks that are going to come out.
The Cassiopeia band, not too surprising. That was what let Distinction get it super far ahead and then transfer his whole lead into the rest of the game. So, not a big surprise. I am a little bit surprised to see the Callista ban, since it didn't really seem like it was that effective, even though it was able to get a big lead in lane. The Sentinel playing that Callista was able to get a decent lead, but then kind of wasted it on a QSS that wasn't really ever useful, and then never really was relevant for the rest of the game. So, a little bit weird to see that ban, and I wasn't really reading the chat too much, so I'm not really sure what's up with the Yorick ban, but maybe we'll see something cool come out.
Oh, there should be some really interesting stuff coming out very soon, but we'll see exactly how interesting it gets. Rumors are that it could get very, very strange, but we shall see. And should be, I think one of the lanes to watch is going to be this top lane, as it is going to be, and that is not a transfer pick, by the way. It is Jhin, and then GP. That wasn't agreed upon. It's supposed to be Jhin versus a Bard top lane or a Varus, but we shall see how that changes now. With standard jungle lanes,
it could be a Gangplank mid or a Gangplank AD carry. We'll see. Hopefully, we'll see the agreed upon matchup. But Bubbletooth getting this Graves again, even though he did fall pretty far behind early on, got randomly chunked out in the jungle. Oh, and that's an Ivern with a Kha'Zix on the same team, so that's definitely interesting. Mid. We'll have to see. Ivern is mid. Okay, I like that. I like that. So I guess this Ivern is going to take Smite and then look to take away a camp level 1. So that'll be interesting. Maybe an Ahri AD carry then, I guess, something like that.
I believe so. This should be. We didn't talk about the bot lane much, so hopefully it's going to be just as interesting. The Soraka should actually be support, as far as I'm aware. The mid lane is probably going to be a Nami, but we shall see what changes in the next couple of picks. Ahri, if that is locked in, I don't know where GP could go. Yeah, it looks like we have dropped back to champion select. Some people didn't own some champions to switch around, so they're going to fix that, but yeah, it's going to be a little bit longer, so let us fix that real quick, and we'll be right back. Okay guys, we are back. It's into Champion Select one more time, and we should see the agreed upon matchups finally, so see what happens.
See what we get, and see if we get some interesting stuff. I'm certainly looking forward to Ivern versus Nami mid.
Absolutely. I mean, that's going to be a matchup for the ages. Have seen some Nami top actually in the past, and I've played it a couple of times, but never Nami mid, because Nami top lane is actually one of the best like cheese counters. It beats Renekton's, it beats like, you know, Riven's at the early levels, because what happens is you press W and you're fully healed and they're half HP.
Yeah, with that extra bounce, you can get it to bounce off yourself onto them, or the other way around, and it's pretty easy to do that in a 1v1 lane. Unfortunately, you don't get any value from that third bounce usually, but unless someone else comes to your lane, like a jungler or something. But still, pretty nice trading early on, just kind of has a hefty mana cost on that heal, so you do run out quite quickly, and of course has limited trading ability when the heal is on cooldown as well.
Yeah, but when it is up, and it is up very often if you max the W early, it is a fantastic ability. We shall see if it beats out Ivern. I think Ivern quite lacking in the damage department until 6.
Yep, Daisy helping him make up for that lack of damage. It is kind of funny to see that we're seeing all these troll matchups in other lanes, but the jungle matchups is probably the 2 best junglers in the current meta. So
with Rengar being banned, I would say so, yes.
yeah, well, we'll see. You know, I feel like with matchups like these, what you're going to see is these junglers are just going to get so massive, and pretty much everything is probably going to be on the Bubbletooth versus Feraligatr matchup in the jungle, since, you know, really nothing is probably going to come of Distinction versus Lunzeki, and probably nothing is going to come of Regal Wolf versus Venice, because it's just going to be hard for them to do much because these champions are, you know, not really real champions in those roles. So on the other hand, you have Graves and Kha'Zix who can just snowball off of these squishy laners and get super far ahead. This looks like a Thresh AD carry. What do you think? Is this going to be full AD or something else?
There it is. That's the promised matchup. The promised matchup was Thresh Bard top lane. That was the promised matchup, and we finally are getting it. So
interesting that we're seeing a Jhin Soraka bottom lane. Then that's actually a fairly strong combination. Ahri Brand, Brand is a pretty strong support, but Ahri not as good at the AD carry position. We'll have to see if she does go for AP or AD. I know that there are some people that do like to go for AD Ahri, but also some people that like to play AP Ahri bottom lane. Although that is obviously a little bit weaker than mid lane since you lack out on those levels. But we'll see. I'm sure there's a lot of interesting things that are going to be happening this game.
Yeah, the actually really interesting thing about APRE in combination with the Brand is the damage you can truly do on the level 2 and 3 power spike. And that levels, I mean, they could 100-0 both of those champions and have damage left over, especially with the Ignite coming out, especially with Ahri having the ability to take Exhaust. She's not going to choose to do so. Sentinel opting for the safer one, so we'll see if he really goes aggressive. But another interesting thing, Ivern has Smite. Is he going to invade on a buff?
I mean, I expect to see him try to take away a camp level 1. Whether that's a buff, it might just be a smaller camp, right? Taking away the Raptors or maybe even Wolves, we'll see where he chooses to go level 1. But I do expect to see, I mean, it makes sense to take the Smite on Ivern. Without Smite, Ivern's passive is pretty useless in a lane, since it's not like you're going to, you know, maybe you get to mark one of your own camps, but, you know, your jungler's not going to really approve of that, and I'm sure that they aren't going to like that very much. So I guess it's better to try and take that Smite, and then every time your Smite is up, you try and sneak out of lane and then sneak into a side camp. Level 1, maybe you do try and take a camp. Maybe you take that Root Caller, try and Root Caller over the wall at the last second, right at 140 when the buff spawns, and just take it away. But they'd have to have some vision. So fortunately for them, they do have a lot of early game power here. They do have the Bard level 1, they have the Ahri level 1, they have the Brand, who's not terribly strong at level 1, but it's decent. So they have a good level 1 to get invades in, and they could potentially invade, get vision, and then figure out what buff Bubbletooth is starting on, and then get the Ivern Steel on the other one. We'll see, though.
Yeah, I mean, Graves can jungle without the blue. It's not fantastic, but it would be a major hit to his pathing almost, and just to his level progression, especially with him and Feraligatr being the main carries. If they can shut down the Graves early, even if it's just temporarily, Feraligatr could spiral completely out of control.
Yep, it is worth noting, of course, the Kha'Zix with the isolation damage. If they do ever meet up 1v1, it is possible for the Kha'Zix to outplay the Graves. Of course, Graves, the fact that he's ranged, he does have that smoke screen, which is extremely powerful against melee champions. It is very difficult for Kha'Zix to actually 1v1 Graves. But if there is a big enough lead for Kha'Zix, especially if there's an early game, a 1-level lead can really mean a lot. If there is a lead for the Kha'Zix, he will be able to take out Graves, especially if he's able to, say, sit in a bush and let Bubbletooth face check into him. It's a lot harder for the Kha'Zix to go in on the Graves than it is for the Graves to go in on the Kha'Zix.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's it's all about the kiting. It's all about who can outplay. But we talked about that bottom lane. Is Jhin Soraka safe enough to withstand the Brand Ahri damage?
I mean, so the one thing about Ahri Brand that's really strong in conjunction is that they both have these unreliable CCs, and it's sort of like any Jhin lane or any like a Jhin Morgana lane where it's like, oh, if I land my CC, then you land your CC, and we just get to chain them, right? It's the same thing with Ahri Brand, where if you hit the charm or if you do hit the Brand Q, which I don't recall the name of off the top of my head, I believe it's called Seer. that with the burn passive on them to hit that stun, you automatically for free get to land the other one, the other skill shot CC. And so that leads into more damage, that leads into more CC, and then often that's just going to be 100-0, especially when this brand has this ignite to help mitigate the healing from Soraka or from the summoner heal from Jhin. That said, on the other side, Jhin Soraka is a pretty safe lane. That's a lot of range, and that is, of course, the heals from Soraka to help heal up from trades. So if they do want to get kills, they are probably going to have to land a lot of CC in a row to be able to chain that through, because the Soraka will be able to heal a lot.
Yeah, she will. I mean, it's hard to imagine exactly how much Soraka heals in certain lanes without actually experiencing it. I don't know how much damage an Ahri brand can truly do, but against a Soraka, it always seems like it's never enough, even in these cheese lanes. I mean, I've seen LeBlanc lanes that go down to it. I've seen, Yasuo bot lanes, Fizz supports. They just can't do enough damage, and it's all about the fact that if you pop the Soraka, it gets a lot easier.
Yep, that is for sure true. So if they can land a lot of the CC, if they can hit the charm onto Soraka, that's probably a kill, right? The charm or the seer onto Soraka. But hitting that onto Jhin is just so much harder to get the kill, because the Soraka will be able to get for sure at least one heal, and that's a lot of health even in the early game. And oftentimes, if they're not able to get the kill instantly, like if they're not level 6 for a lot of that extra instant burst, the Soraka will be able to get another heal, maybe the ultimate, and then maybe that buys enough time for another heal. And at that point, you're saying, okay, is this, are they really ever going to be able to get this kill? Probably not. So it's going to be hard for them to do that. Worth noting, this is a Thresh with Thunderlords, whereas the Bard has taken Fervor of Battle. So Thresh is going to probably win out on these shorter trades, but Bard is looking for the longer trades here from Venice. So that is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, the really interesting thing about Thresh Bard is actually you can take Grasp on Thresh and pretty much outvalue most top lane matchups in the early levels, basically up till 4. And with Bard on Fervor, rather than the Thunderlords, rather than the Grasp himself, it's going to be really interesting to see exactly how that first 4 levels go. Because if Regal picks, if he picks a little bit harder, if he sets up the jungle a little bit better with the death sentence, I mean, the Bard is conditionally stunning. He has to stay in the minion wave to do so. It could be a lot harder for Alligator to influence the lane.
Also worth noting, this is a Ahri with Warlord's Bloodlust and the Doran's Blades. This is going to be the AD Ahri, not the AP Ahri with the massive burst, that you expect to see. Not the same thing where you expect to see the chain CC into insta-kill onto this Soraka. This is not going to be a lot of damage coming from these Ahri skills, because there's just not going to be AP to back it up. So having the CC, but maybe not the instant damage. More sustained damage, so a little bit better at trading, but feels like that's a lot worse against Soraka than the AP would have been. I'm not sure about that, though. It's not something I'm really super experienced with.
Yeah, it's interesting, to say the least. I don't think many people are experienced in this, so we'll see what happens. Charm, level 1 distinction. CC is sort of there. Flashes the wall. Ignite still ticking. Double flash. First blood secured by GA. Save Jesus. But that's a heck of a lot of summoners for it.
Yeah, 4 summoners for 1 on this for the side of just Distinction's flash going down. But of course, I mean, it's still nice to get that extra kill. It did go to the brand support, which I always like to say, the early kills on the support are quite nice. That does hit you to your early power spikes early, early power spikes faster than you would normally get them, since especially the brand can hit these early power spikes so easily. But Lunzeki is taking away this blue buff, so that's going to be a blue going over
trading.
level 1. Oh, the Kha'Zix is on the other side. Oh, no. The Graves. Okay, yeah. So this is Bubbletooth taking away the blue here as well. So that is going to be no net advantage for NIL here.
It could be, depending on how long the Ivern stays around. I think he actually dropped his passive onto the Wolf Camp. Yes, he did. And so if he sticks around for a while, he could actually come back up and make that happen. I don't know if Bubbletooth is aware that he dropped passive there. Could make it a little bit harder if he goes for this red buff. Ivern, walk up Ludens, get a free camp. I mean, that's good XP, and it disrupts his jungle pathing quite a bit.
Yeah, it will be a while before he can actually get this smite up, though. Obviously, yeah, if he can get to that wolf camp, but it's pretty difficult and pretty dangerous to go, walk into the enemy jungle just to get, a little bit of XP, a little bit of gold. Obviously, stealing it away from Bubbletooth is a pretty big deal, but Lunzeki with this huge brush wall As we're seeing for Alligator poking his head around, maybe looking for Bubble Tooth, but decides not to go all the way into the jungle and is just going to turn around and go for this bottom side Scuttle Crab. Probably going to lead into the Gromp afterward, I would imagine. So probably nothing super huge and aggressive coming out from this Kha'Zix early on.
Yeah, and there's the Nami trades we were talking about. Distinction. Every time he takes a trade, he just gets it for free. Even with the Ivern hiding in the bushes, you can just throw out the ebb and flow and just win every single trade. And it's so hard to counter that. Even with Ivern on blue buff, with almost infinite mana, infinite CC, he just doesn't have the damage to really counter it.
Yeah, it's really hard to think, like, how hard will this Ivern be losing this lane when he loses this blue buff, right? The blue buff lasts 2 minutes, but once that falls off, how is he going to be able to contest with this, right? Because right now, he's already losing some of these trades, right? Yes, he's probably going to have a small CS lead if he's able to pick up enough of these minions here, but he's losing these trades pretty badly to Distinction, and the blue buff will fall off, and then he will start being in a real troublesome spot. As for Alligator, gets bubbled by a nice bubble by Distinction.
Oh, the CC Root Caller lands, so does for Alligator's damage, and even with Distinction, he already blue flash. They don't remember. They didn't go for it. You guys blue flash at the beginning of the game. They don't go for it. They still think he's saving it, and that cost them huge. If they had landed that kill, maybe Ludens could have landed it, but there's the CC chain we're talking about in the bot lane. Jesus, man, he has a lot of damage.
Yeah, but then, of course, there's also the Soraka heals coming out that we were talking about. The Soraka is getting a little low on mana, so maybe those will eventually run out. But Niter Shadow, you know, they've already gone through his health bar, what, 2-3 times at this point?
3 or 4.
And Starai's just been able to heal him full back up. This is the insane Soraka sustain that you expect to see from this champion.
I mean, just think about what every other champion can't do, and that's refresh your health bar multiple times in a row without stopping in the same lane. And it's just for that, Bubble Tooth, they just bait them in, and Sentinel loses his life for it. GSA Jesus healed, sped up, but they are so caught out of position. That was insane. Now Ludens actually taking his skills to the top lane. That's CC, he lands shield, but even with the Root Caller, I don't know if they have damage. Regal Wolf has to flash away into the turret, still landing a death sentence on the backside of it, and that's one turret shot, but not enough to deter Venice from throwing an auto. Fades away, and a good roam by Ludens.
Yeah, worth noting that they were only able to pick up those kills in the bottom lane from the Bubble Tooth gang because both flashes of Eye Sentinel and GAC Jesus were down from that level 1 play. Right? They both flashed in, they both got that kill onto Distinction, they flashed over the wall, but because they used their flashes level 1, they didn't have them available to stop this early gank from Bubble Tooth, and that's going to get Niter Shadow hugely ahead here. He's up a massive amount of CS, 17 CS, as it's lowering down a little bit as Eye Sentinel's able to pick up some of this wave, but a huge amount of CS. Now he's up experience, he's up gold, he's going to be able to back by lethality, and Niter Shadow's going to be able to do some pretty messed up stuff in this lane now, I suspect, since neither Eye Sentinel nor GA Save Jesus is going to be buying armor, and Niter Shadow's going to be doing a lot of damage.
Yeah, he's absolutely going to be doing a lot of damage. Hopefully it'll be enough, but as of right now, it doesn't look like that's the case. They really need to pick this Soraka, really need to bring her down first in order to have any shot at killing this Jhin.
Yeah, and that's really unfortunate when the Jhin does get a lead like this because, you know, you say, oh, we want to use our CC on the Jhin because he does so much damage, but you can't afford to because the Soraka will just heal him back up, especially now that Soraka is getting closer and closer to level 6. Once that Wish comes online, you're not going to be able to, 100-0 this Jhin through CC, right? The Soraka Wish is just too much.
Oh, Niter Shadow caught out of position. Ignite is down. Even with Stareye flashing in, he can't heal him up. And that is the Jhin pick we are talking about. Either you've got to get him 100% alone, or you've got to get the Soraka first, and they choose the first option. Do manage to bring him down. Ludens actually now, Surf is up underneath the Ivern, flashes away, still in the wave, still going down. And even with GA Save Jesus showing up, Bubble Tooth is alive and well. The double support comp really aiding in these guys living through some very, very long fights.
Yep, that tidal wave, it goes a long distance, and when your mid laner, when your mid laner is Nami as opposed to your support, it actually does a bit of damage. And of course, there is an AP ratio on Nami's passive. We are not saying that's come up big yet, but eventually this Nami will be granting a lot of movement speed, especially the wave will be able to grant tons of movement speed to the allies. As Sentinel gets deadly flourished, but not much going to come of that. So. Stareye getting hit, and of course that kill onto Niter Shadow that we were talking about earlier, the one way they can do this, I was talking about how difficult it's going to be once Stareye hits 6, how difficult it's going to be through this healing. If Stareye's not there, none of that matters. So they're able to catch him without Stareye there, and they're able to take him out, but there's Niter Shadow looking for some aggressive trades, and since Stareye is here, that's something that he can do.
Oh, the bouncing grenade, though, takes out half of Sentinel's remaining HP. He's sitting on like 200. The flash 4th auto! It manages to make it happen, and Venice flashes away. He throws his own ultimate down, but Distinction's still under the turret.
Oh,
and
the
Regal
hook kill.
will finish it off. That's a great kill from him. For Alligator not managing to jump the wall, and this Kha'Zix is just a little bit behind. If he had been any closer when Distinction went under turret, that was a kill, maybe 2.
Yeah, and like I was saying, you know, you get this jungle matchup that is 2 super strong junglers in the current meta, whereas pretty much everyone else, you know, other than the bottom lane here, you know, to some extent, somewhat meta. Obviously, the RE AD carry, not really much of a thing, but everything else pretty reasonable, aside from these solo lane supports. When you do get an early lead on your jungler like this, and there's so many supports in the game, you expect the jungler to just continue going off because, hey, if I'm ahead and I'm the jungler, and I know that these enemy laners are super weak, I can just come to their lane and say, hey, I'm going to show up, and there's nothing you can do about it. I'll just kill you, right? He can 1v1 Venice, he can 1v1 Ludenzeki very easily, and there's not much for Alligator can do about it because he is significantly behind Bubbletooth at this point. Bubbletooth actually has a pretty substantial XP lead. He's about half a level up for Alligator, and he has a pretty good gold lead as well. So this is going to be pretty hard for Alligator to deal with, and he's going to need to figure something out. And he's going to probably need to pick up a kill if he wants to compete.
Yeah, he really does need that, but right now Distinction Surf, he's just throwing out wave after wave, but I don't know how long he can sustain it because that's still damage. They're still pursuing the turret. Daisy there, ticking away the red buff. Venice exhausted up under the turret, and he goes down. Daisy actually took the portal herself, and that's a crazy pet chasing under the turrets. Distinction still alive, though. Stareye came in, and they're supporting each other, but that was an absolutely insane fight.
Yeah, these full support comps, this Soraka Wish coming in. Oh, his Night Shadow gets caught alone again. He's probably going to go down. He's got no flash. He is dead. But yeah, these support comps coming out. The Wish coming in from the bottom lane from Stareye as he roamed up to save Distinction, saved his life. Then his own heal came out, buying him more time than the exhaust onto Venice. Venice dies under the turret, and he's able to turn that around. Distinction, you know, another nice play in the mid lane on this Nami.
Oh, for Alligator from the back. Distinction doesn't know what hit him, but now he does. Even with the bubble flashed away, for Alligator picks up a kill. Stareye could be in danger. They know where Bubbletooth is, lurking around the mid lane, but he has his supportive jungler still standing by. 2 versus 2. Will they want to take the fight? Doesn't look like it.
Nice flash there from for Alligator, and exactly like I said, you know, for Alligator needed to get a lead to be able to compete with Bubbletooth. He needed to pick up some kills. That's exactly what he's done, and so now he can actually base. And he's actually about equal in gold with Bubbletooth now. So once they actually both base, they will be about even in items, assuming that they base around the same time. So this is really a really big deal here for NIL. As sorry, maybe going to get caught, but does sweep the bush before walking into it, which was very wise. But yeah, this is a really big deal because without getting that lead onto for Alligator, if they just allowed Bubbletooth to continue getting out of control, that probably would have been a free game going over to KMP.
Yeah, and that could be the 2-0 very quickly. Right now, though, it's actually equaled back, and we do have a little bit more time before it all ends. So we'll see. At 11 minutes, the gold lead's very even. Venice needs to start making something happen in this top lane because I have no idea what he's building.
Well, you know, it could be several different items at the same time. I don't believe that those 2 particular items build into the same... Oh, no, Rage Blade. It must be a Rage Blade. Since the only thing that Double Dagger and Blasting Wand build into is Rage Blade. So unless he's building 2 items at the same time, which is a possibility but maybe less likely, that is probably a Rage Blade, which doesn't really make a lot of sense to me because Bard has no inherent on-hit effects. But yeah, we'll see if that's what it ends up being, and if that is it, I suspect that this Thresh will probably continue winning lane against him and probably continue out-trading him for the foreseeable future, since the Thresh with crit obviously does have that cheesy first auto attack with the Flay passive that does do massive damage. Whereas the Bard, you know, with Rage Blade, you're going to have to attack a long time to be able to beat that Thresh trade.
Actually, what's really interesting is the fact that the Bard autos specifically are a little bit... they have that meat passive, and that's almost equal to the Thresh, especially if you build AP or AD.
Yep, we'll see if he's able to continue picking up the meeps, as he does go for the Tempered Fate.
Not landing it, though. Oh, he misses the flash. That was so key, but he gets flayed into the box wall, and Regal Wolf should be able to take him down. He does. The attack speed is enough as Bubbletooth is silenced by Ice Sentinel. They do trade 1-for-1, but on completely opposite sides of the map, and that's a 2-0 thresh. The top lane slowly falling in favor of KMP.
Yeah, and you got to expect this is going to be accelerating him to his first item, which is probably... Ooh, Nitro Shadow with a nice fourth shot. That's a lot of damage there. And like we said, yeah, Nitro Shadow is still very far ahead. Despite his misplays here and getting 2 deaths, he's still really strong, right? He's still doing a lot of damage. He still has gotten quite far ahead of this Ahri from Ice Sentinel. But, yeah, the PD coming out here from Regal.
Pushing for Alligators behind him. They could actually turn this around. Nitro Shadow flashes in, fourth auto, knows the damage, gets it done, and that is crazy done.
Deadly Flourish.
It lands onto Sentinel. Can he run away? I think he's going to get under the turret, but they might try and tank it up. There is the curtain call, and Sentinel, this is the last time that this play will be shown. Ahri actually gets out, so Nitro Shadow now has to tank up the turret. Will Sentinel even go for the charm? I think he will. Tanked up Nitro Shadow. That's dead, Nitro Shadow. The charm lasts so long, and it's just Jin under the turret. Goodbye. Thank you very much. Blue buff transfer complete.
You gotta think that maybe Stareye should have tanked a couple of shots to the turret there and allowed Nitro Shadow to just get in and deal his damage, since, of course, Stareye can't kill Ice Sentinel even at that HP. You know, the Soraka does no damage. So you gotta think, hey, you know, why don't you go and tank the turret? Oh, Ice Sentinel is gonna get exploded here by Bubbletooth, I expect. He does have collateral damage, even if Ice Sentinel had gotten away, but no way for him to get away with no ult, no flash, so...
with ultimate, I mean, maybe he could have hoped to dodge the collateral damage, but such a big cone, I mean...
Yeah, it's pretty large, and you gotta expect, you know, you gotta use the first charge just to get away from the Graves, and then you have to try and use the second one to dodge it, but there is a timer before you can, use the second charge.
1.25 internal cooldown.
Yeah, so you gotta wait for that 1.25 seconds, and what if the Graves just collateral damages you then? You're just dead, right?
I mean, the interesting thing would have been if he had it up, and this is all theoretical because it came up like 10 seconds too late, but if he had it up and thrown it in, but not to the cone range, to the smaller range, you know, where it's still a single projectile, then he could have actually used it to realistically possibly dodge it. But Nitro Shadow, can you dodge this? I don't think so. GA Save Jesus needs some saving of himself, and that's just going to be the collateral damage. It was saved earlier, but it doesn't save his life as GA Save Jesus drops top lane, ganked up for Alligators, picked up a kill there as well.
So I don't know how familiar you are with AD Thresh, but I always thought that the big thing on AD Thresh was to get that static shift so that you could get the maximum burst damage. We're seeing a PD here for him, though, just for the extra 1v1 power, I guess.
Generally,
so that's kind of interesting. Yeah, I was thinking the static, since you do get that enormous flay passive burst, so if you do get a crit, you know, you can do some pretty insane damage, as maybe the CC chain, not quite. The Silencer not quite getting the root at the end.
Health.
Yeah, a lot of health.
I mean, the health plus the fact that he has a neg cloak. How are you going to kill this Ivern? The problem is usually, it's always, how do we kill Ivern? But that's on jungle gold. He's currently on mid lane gold, and absolutely even more unkillable. Nitro Shadow, though, does not have that problem, as this Nami cannot keep him alive. Distinction picks up one. Stareye brought Bubbletooth into the bottom lane, but he cannot finish off the Ahri. That is a Luden's... a Z-Zerot Nami, though, so the mid lane's still going to get shoved out now.
Yeah, a few patches ago, this probably would have been pretty decent as far as, you know, as Nami mid goes. I imagine the Z-Zerot would have been pretty strong on it before the nerfs to Z-Zerot, but now that those minions just don't go that far, I'm not really, you know, real clear on whether... I'm not real sold on this being a strong itemization choice for the Nami. I mean, obviously, you have good bases. You know, you have good bases on the heal, on the damage there, you know, utility values. I would have expected more of an AP build, though, maybe something like an Ardent Sensor or Redemption, but you know, I'm sure that this is fine too, honestly. This will keep the mid lane shoved, and it does allow him to roam more, so maybe he can take advantage of that you know, support speed, since he won't have to spend as much time in the mid lane now.
Yeah, generally most Nami tops, at least, I don't know about Nami mid, but Nami top would like do the standard Frost Queen for poke damage and burst into either like a Gunblade or a Luden's, you know, something that gives you that base damage from the item itself. And then you just go full into Ardent Sensor, Redemption, all of those items. But as of right now, with Gunblade just receiving nerfs to the base damages and Luden's not being that viable, I would have just liked to see, you know, Frost Queens for the health and then straight into Redemption.
Well, it would have made sense to me, but maybe he's got a new plan. Maybe he's going to be split pushing this game with that ZZ route portal. We'll see. As we're seeing the curtain call open up on a GA save Jesus. Taking 2 shots so far. 4th shot being held here. Maybe waiting for something special. I don't know what, but
He's well, he landed it. GA save Jesus eats a 4th one, but for Alligator could be eating 2 people. That's a good time for him, actually. Swap back up into the top lane. Death Sentence landed onto Regal Wolf, but cannot find the damage, and that's a rank 7 Bard with Rage Blade. I don't know what the Rage Blade means, but it is certainly absolutely ridiculous to watch. It looks like the game is sped up, in fact, in top lane.
Yeah, Regal Wolf did miss that flay as we tuned into the top lane. Did miss that flay after the Death Sentence. Probably could have gotten a pretty favorable trade had he hit it, since obviously the Rage Blade Bard, not exactly the highest damage build imaginable, whereas the PD on Thresh does enable him to do quite a bit of damage with those flay auto attacks. So I imagine that he has quite a bit stronger trading, unless Venice is able to stack up that Rage Blade for quite a while. And obviously, since he is in a lane, he can stack up that Rage Blade passive on minions. As Ice Sentinel almost getting hit by the Deadly Version. Instead, GA saves Jesus tanked it.
Oh, my directed cam has not gone down to the bottom lane yet, but now we are down here on manual, Night or Shadow, looking for some damage, but with Graves coming in, Bubbletooth actually is surely going to pop this, and he does. That's a dead Brand, but what more can he get? He's actually still chasing into the turret. Charmed Up is looking for some damage, and he gets collateral, but that's not enough to bring down Ice Sentinel. He flashes the flourish, and he gets away. The Ahri lives with a sliver of HP.
Yeah, all Bubbletooth needed was one more auto attack, one more anything, really, onto Ice Sentinel, but doesn't quite get it. Ice Sentinel getting out with a sliver of health there as Regal Wolf going in on Venice. Who's going to win this? I don't know.
If there's still a minion alive, Venice wins it. He just needs one more Q to land onto Regal Wolf. He has not gotten it yet, though, and as of right now, that's CC. That is what matters. He blew his ult, though. He blew his flash. Summoner's still up for Thresh, so Regal Wolf has damage, and he has it now, but Star Eye, I thought that was a little bit risky. Root Caller was up, so was Daisy. He could have gone down there, but doesn't, and Distinction saves him from a untimely demise.
Yeah, these bubbles from Distinction have been quite nice. I mean, as far as mid lane, mid lane pressure goes, he's hit a lot of bubbles to save himself, to blow summoners. He's going to have to flash away from for Alligator here. The wave coming out, doing a little bit of damage, but mostly for the CC. So we'll see about that. And we're seeing a needlessly large rod for Venice here. All right, what are you thinking this is? Do you think this is a Death Cap, a Ludens? What are you expecting?
I have absolutely no concrete idea, but Ludens makes the most sense, I think.
Yeah, the movement speed, I mean, obviously the extra burst, although it's kind of weird to go for a burst item
with going Rage Blade, yeah.
Yeah, because the Rage Blade really is only good in a sustained fight, so that seems super weird, but the needlessly large rod really doesn't build into that many items anymore, so I suspect it's probably going to be the Ludens, although, maybe it'll be the Death Cap. We'll see. Looks like we're seeing a Maw Memorious coming out from Regal Wolf here. Got the Hex Drinker already, which makes some sense. I mean, the Bard is going to do mostly magic damage, even though it does have this AD and attack speed from the Rage Blade. And even though there is a physical damage jungler and an AD carry, a lot of the damage from this Ahri will be magic damage, and a lot of the damage from Ivern will be magic damage, and of course the support magic damage. So just a really nice pickup here, I think, although, again, this is a pretty atypical AD Thresh build. You usually expect to see the Shiv into the IE full burst build.
Yeah, I'd really actually like to see full AD Bard as well. The full AD Bard, it just has so much more damage than the AP counterpart, the AP on hit one, just because AP items, when you have no AP scalings, are kind of worthless. And then, of course, you gotta get the Chime collecting, you gotta get more of those minions, but you also gotta dodge those Brand Seers. He step in there, GA Save Jesus is going traditional Brand, he has a lot of damage, and you gotta be scared of him.
Yep, Deadly First landing here, but they just don't have the people to back it up. KMP is just not going to be able to do much with that root landing. But we're seeing a little bit of pressure here. Maybe NIL goes for a dragon, but we'll see if they end up deciding to go to it. They don't know this since he's not seen on a ward, but Bubbletooth is nearby, and they probably suspect that he's there as well. Essence on the knees is getting pulled in. Maybe tower shot. No tower shot, but
ooh, the box, though. You gotta be careful, Venice. You're walking into some damage, and he's so low. But right now, even then, he heals himself, gets on out of there, and this Bard is so lucky. Or well played, depending on your point of view, Venice. He managed to make it out, but Regal Wolf controls the top lane.
Yeah, Regal Wolf definitely showing that he has the advantage in this top lane. You can see even from the health values here. Oh, going for a very aggressive flash hook. Not really sure about that. I think he probably could have just flash autoed him. with the Flay passive, and that probably would have ended his life. I mean, looks pretty hilarious as far as I'm concerned.
What fun is that when you can throw a death sentence? Right now, Bubbletooth eats a root caller, but he has Edge of Night, he has damage, and he has a Soraka backing him up. There's so little that they can do against this. He's on a rampage, and the death sentence does eventually land. Regal Wolf slays Venice. 13-8 now. The Dragon already being started. 1400 HP, 100 HP. Picked up the second mountain of the game, going over to KMP, but Niter Shadow, not where you want to be. Actually dashed away. Sentinel didn't land the follow-up Q, and that second orb missing means that he's going to die. Niter Shadow healed up, and this Soraka is just saving members left and right.
Also worth noting, of course, this is an AD Ahri, so the damage is pretty minimal. So, really, you know, not really sure what Sentinel was thinking there. Thinking, hey, oh, I caught this Jhin. You know, if he was full AP, yeah, probably could have killed him there, right? You know, maybe the Soraka could have saved him, but probably would have had the burst to just blow through him, especially if you'd been able to get the charm onto Soraka, which is, of course, the big thing you like to do with APRE when you do go in on someone in that kind of situation. You hit the CC onto their support so that they can't do anything to you, or they can't stop you from killing the main, you know, damage dealer, the squishy. But as AD just doesn't quite have the damage, right? So just a lot of sustained damage, no real burst, and can't pick up the kill. And that's the ZZ route going down in the mid lane from Distinction. Maybe put it a little too far up, but probably got a little bit of turret damage off it, since we can see that mid lane turret is quite low now.
Actually, interestingly enough, on the Ahri, I build Morello's into the Gunblade, because Gunblade's active, or at least I did before the Gunblade nerfs, but Gunblade's active used to be 250 base at all levels. So what happened is, you'd finish the Morellos, everybody would be like, okay, you're Ahri. And then you'd finish the Revolver, and everybody would be like, okay, he has an extra 100 damage. And then you'd finish Gunblade, and you just 100-0 them with missing every ability. And it's absolutely insane, but this is not missing. Actually, I say that's a big miss unless the bubble comes down. It does, end of line, finishing that off. Bubbletooth still pursuing, and with that curtain call, Luden's Etchy is going down. Regal Wolf stunned into the wall. Feraligatr picks up one, but with two down in the mid lane, this Brand, no way he can defend this turret.
Yeah, some nice shots coming out, and on the map, a 2-for-1 in favor of KMP. So they're able to sort of, you know, use their top laner's advantage. Hey, you got to send your jungler up here to stop this Thresh top lane. As we're seeing, GA Save Jesus probably going down. Bubbletooth does have red, but is not willing to chase that, even though he would have been able to easily pick up that kill since the Deadly Flourish did hit. Probably a lack of communication there about the Deadly Flourish, probably thinking it was already used, it was down, not willing to chase that in, but probably should have at least been willing to tank one more tower shot to see if it did hit, since he wasn't really in any danger at full HP.
No, this Soraka, every time there's a pick, every time an ability lands, like the Charm, like the Root Caller, she's there, and the target is full HP twice in a row.
Yeah, it's, you know, of course it's worth noting there's not that many legitimate champions, you know, played in their proper role in this game, and of course Soraka is one of them, and it's just been so effective this game. 0-0 and 10, has a redemption, looks like it's working towards the Ardent Sensor, which is going to be pretty decent here, you know, helps out the Jhin a little bit, it helps out the Graves quite a bit, and even could do a lot of work with this AD Thresh, since of course he will be auto-attacking quite frequently, so we'll see how effective that really is, and if it is in fact the Ardent Sensor coming out, which I suspect that it is.
Oh, missed actually the stun. That was so close. Venice could have landed a kill, but right now, with Niter Shadow coming down, they need to reconsider with the Bard being overextended. Yeah, he does manage to make his way out. So even with the curtain call, I don't think Niter Shadow will catch on to him. They don't know that Feraligatr's up here, though, so if the curtain call starts up, Jhin could be very dead.
Yeah, that is one worth noting. You know, when you do start up that curtain call on Jhin, you are very vulnerable. So Distinction getting aggressed on here on the bottom lane, but does seem to have a lot of damage onto GA Save Jesus. The exhaust coming out really fast.
Dodging the stun, a lot of movement speed, but will Distinction be alive at the end? It looks like so. The second redemption comes out, and Stareye saves him for now. Niter Shadow, they know where Stareye is. It's not top lane. Finally, the Kazakhs can start getting kills. A double kill for him. And they keep pursuing. Distinction kills the Brand. And there's just kills and fighting all over the map. Stareye goes down. That's his first death of the game. But it's a big one as 4 members of KMP are wiped from the map.
Wow, that was a lot of fighting, and it was a pretty big overall win here for NIL. They get a lot off of that, and I don't know why Sentinel hasn't taken out the ZZ route yet, but big win overall for them, even though Distinction was in the bottom lane, juking so many skill shots with all that movement speed he gets from Nami with the extra AP. Has a Banner of Command now to help with the split push, although, of course, that's not going to be super effective against Eye Sentinel since he is building a lot of AD. Does look like a Triforce next coming in for him, so that's going to give him some CDR, maybe some more frequent charms. We'll see if that's effective. But, yeah, double ZZ Rod in the mid lane here. I suspect Luden Zeki could probably push the ZZ Rod down. They could take this turret out pretty quickly.
Yeah, it looks like that is going to be the case. They actually don't even bother using the ZZ Rock. Just going to choose to auto it, but Venice pays with his life. You've got to respect this Jhin damage. He is lethality'd up, and that's scary at this point in the game. 2 lethality items, BF sword to cap it.
That was a huge amount of damage from that last shot. Of course, was able to hit some stuff before that. But going back to what we were talking about earlier, this is a Luden's Echo on the Bard. A little weird, as we mentioned, it's weird to see a burst item with a sustained damage item from the Rage Blade, but maybe he really just wants that movement speed. I suspect that that's really what he's looking for, not necessarily the burst, but that 10% extra movement speed from the Ludens is quite powerful. So, nice to see that. I mean, we'll probably see Bard roaming around the map a little more now that he's finished the Luden's Echo. Maybe get some level 2 boots as well and just start flying around at Mach speed. Picking up those chimes. But we'll see. Bubbletooth in the mid lane here. Looks like he's probably going for a Sterax Gauge next. But, of course, it could be something else.
Oh, nice Shadow. Here. That's very risky from him, but he has Starry to back him up. Now the Flourish dodged out. Flash by Ludens. Actually has to move away from that one. Regal Wolf, they're not even going to pop the Soraka ult. It was up the entire time, but the Wish isn't used, and I wish that Regal Wolf was still alive, so does he, but right now, Jhin actually going to be barded up. Now, GSA Jesus could look for another engage with this. Venice coming through the wall. Bubbletooth looks to stop, and that's a good stun onto 2. Niter Shadow CC'd up, and he's chained into a bunch of damage, but can they even bring him down? The Soraka still trying her best to keep him alive. Not going to happen as they start to march through the team. Bubbletooth picks up 1, but is shortly traded out, and Distinction is going to go down. 1 versus 4. What can he do? The answers picks up 1. But that's still 3 members left alive, and the mid turrets are going to go down.
5 for 2. That's a pretty big win for NIL. So, it's pretty big. Like you can see that there's just I don't really know what to talk about, but there's a 4K lead here for KMP still. They have 2 Earth Dragons up, so they could probably take this Baron whenever they want. But even so, they're opting into these fights. And they're just not coming out on top. This has happened 2 times in a row here where they've had split fights all over the map and they've just come out behind. And probably should stop looking for them when you verified, hey, did this work out for us when we just fought all over the map at the same time? No, it didn't work. Then they tried it again, still didn't work. And yeah, we'll see if they continue doing that or if they try a new strategy like taking Baron or maybe going for collapse on Venice or something like that.
But what could you collapse on? The Bard goes through every wall like twice a second, so it's incredibly hard to lock down this very slippery man, but right now, I just got to put the emphasis on for Alligator. He has started up both of these fights with a solo pick in a side lane. If he does it again, I think that there's absolutely no way that KMP are going to be able to deal with him. I mean, who can they send to deal with this Kha'Zix? It's surely not Niter Shadow. He gets popped instantly. I mean, even with the Soraka we saw, he still gets destroyed.
Bubbletooth should be pretty close to being able to 1v1 this Kha'Zix. Of course, with the Sterax Gauge, we'll have enough tankiness to survive several isolated Qs. But this is, of course, like I was saying, this is exactly what KMP should have been doing a while ago. Just take the Baron. You've got 2 Earths, you've got a ton of supports. Your Graves can just face tank it because you have so many supports. You've got the shields, you've got the heals, and you have enough damage from the Jhin and the Graves that you'll be able to take it at a pretty reasonable rate as well, especially with these double Earth Dragons that they have picked up. Definitely a bit of Dragon RNG there for them, since no other Dragons I think would have been good in this position, as Venice is just going to get caught.
He tries to get that 1v1, but unfortunately for him, it's a 4v1.
Yeah, but going back to that, I think the Earth Dragons were the best possible dragons for KMP to get, since you're not going to get as much value out of the Infernal Dragons in this kind of game where there's so many supports, and the extra, AD and AP on supports just isn't as valuable because their scalings in general are not as good, especially when your supports are going items like Ardent Sensor and ZZ Rot, which either give no or very small amounts of AP, as Bubbletooth going in, but the Earth seems like the best dragon here.
Yeah, he's going to go down, and the Earth Dragons got the Baron, and the Baron is getting them turrets. Even with Redemptions, I don't know how long these health bars are going to last. As a blue turret goes down on the bot side, the Inhibitor is going to drop in the top side. Distinction, surely he's going to burn down. Nah, with Star Eye, he's still alive, and Niter Shadow has to maintain his health bar. He cannot do so, for Ralligator is unstoppable. The inhibitor is going to fall, though, and that is a huge cannon minion that is marching into the base. Bubbletooth is going to land it onto a hooked-up Venice. They bring him down, and 1 versus 4. This Kha'Zix has it all to do.
Yeah, this Baron, that plus the 2 Earth Dragons are able to take out these turrets so easily with this Graves. It has such powerful turret-taking ability. Eye Sentinel is able to trade an inhibitor turret, but they're losing their whole base here. NIL can't just lose, can't just
could finish.
leave them to split push.
Okay, they're choosing not to finish, but it's half health with just minions. I mean, they could have finished at any point during this game, I feel. Like, right there, it was just... That was it, but it seems like they choose to not do that. Starry flashes over the wall, and the base is cleaned up. Nexus remains at about half HP.
Yeah, whether or not they decide not to try to end, or whether they decided, hey, maybe this is a little risky. They're all coming up, but since they were about to spawn, it is a little dangerous, and it does feel a little more awkward, especially when you realize Distinction has no mana, and there were a lot of cooldowns down.
Save Jesus brings down another one. That's a good kill onto Soraka. She's the only one keeping people alive, and Bubbletooth is kiting away now, but Feraligatr has a red buff ticking away on his face, and that means he's going to go down. GA Save Jesus sentenced to death by Regal Wolf. That's a great pick, but can they get more? Eye Sentinel, he has damage, but how much does he really have? That's such a big auto by Thresh, and Ahri gets away for now.
Yeah, that big Flay auto attack doing about almost half of Eye Sentinel's health, maybe around around a third or so, a little bit closer to...
Imagine if that was a static auto.
Yeah, imagine if he had Static Shiv, if he had IE. It looks like he might be going IE now, but with a build like this where you have Wit's End, that's more of a sustained damage build that doesn't go for this huge initial crit that, gets close to one-shotting people. That's really what you expect, right? Like, that's at least what I expect from an AD Thresh.
Yeah.
Because that's the one thing, you could sit in the bush, Squishy comes up to the bush, wow, you auto-attack them once, and they are almost dead, or very, very close to dead, and then you can usually finish them off with your skills. This build, maybe a little bit better in some regards, and especially in regards to sustained damage, since, of course, you do have this Wit's End. You can stack your MR passive. You can get a little tankier. You have a lot of better 1v1 potential, especially with this PD giving you the bonus damage reduction against people that you hit. The Sterax shield giving you lots of extra effective HP, but a little disappointing not to see that huge burst.
Oh, you mean that burst?
Yeah, kind of like that, except a lot cheesier and not quite as meta. That was some meta burst right there. That was what we expect.
Meta burst with lethality on his back and champions at his front. They're just gonna start the end of it all. Eye Sentinel, even with the hooks, he can't dodge it, and this is going to be it. It looks like KMP are going to march into the base. 2 members left alive. And even with the stuns, Venice, what can he do? The root callers have landed. He's going out of his own base, and they're chasing them away. Luden's drops in the middle, and Niter Shadow is just standing on the Nexus, waiting for his compadres to show up. The second inhibitor will fall. The third inhibitor could even go down. They're thinking about it. I don't think they want to. Niter Shadow, hold that train of thought. Venice wants a piece of you, and it looks like he might get it. Regal Wolf not even getting assisted. Niter Shadow flashes away, though, as GA Save Jesus starts the ultimate up. Cataclysm of Destruction coming in, and Regal Wolf lands the death sentence. Venice one more time. The hooks are landing. The bubbles are too. Distinction gets the kill, and the Nexus starts to fall. This is going to be KMP taking the coaches Showmatch 2-0 to wrap up our season.
Yep, and there's got the super minions pouring into the base here from 2 lanes. The Nexus going down. KMP picking it up, even with the troll comps. It did seem like Bubbletooth was quite effective on this Graves.
Absolutely, and that is the power of meta lethality burst. It's a 13-2-7 Graves, and that's going to do it for us. I mean, that was a fantastic game to end on, I would say. It really shows us exactly what the coaches are all about.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a blast to watch games like this where people are just, hey, I want to try this. Like, this seems really cool. Okay, you know what? Let's just do it, right? Thresh versus Bard top, and it turns out, hey, this Bard, you go Rage Blade, you go for the longer sustained trades, and maybe this Thresh can just do shorter trades, and that's what it seemed like he went for, and he was able to pull out the advantage. Forced Feraligatr to come up there a bunch, and even though both junglers were on these meta junglers who are very strong, Bubbletooth was able to pull out ahead over Feraligatr and ended up coming up with the win, and I don't think that's a coincidence. I think that it definitely is Bubble Tooth was a huge factor of the win, and that he was able to get ahead of Feraligatr, and then even though he did fall back into even with Feraligatr, since Feraligatr picked up those kills, he was able to get a huge bigger lead over Feraligatr in the later parts of the game.
Yeah, and I think with that, it is going to wrap up everything, and it looks like that will do it for us. Thank you all very much for joining us for this season of Learning Fives, but we got another session coming up in just a few short weeks. Keep your eyes on our Twitter at Learning Fives, and keep your eyes on our Twitch at Learning Fives lol. Follow us if you guys are interested, and thank you very much for joining us again. It has been a pleasure. My name is Zeta Beta, of course, and joining me, thank you very much for showing up, N-Step. It's been a great time.
Hey, thanks for having me on, and it's been a good cast. So, yeah, thanks for watching, and catch you guys next time.
Yeah, follow him at NStepLol, by the way, if you guys want. I'm just gonna flash that real quick. Yeah, follow him there. All right, thank you guys for watching, and good night. We will be back soon with another session of Learning Fives. If you want information, go check us out on Twitter.